Hello, and welcome to another episode of Social Workers Rise. You are in for a treat today, my friend, because we are with Lauren Chandler. She is an MSW and a social work crisis clinician who specializes in acute crisis intervention. She has a focus on individuals experiencing suicidal ideation, homicidal ideation, or acute psychosis. She enjoys working alongside folks as they collaborate on effective coping skills and treatment modalities together. Welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to meet you. I've listened to you for
Oh,
a
well,
long
thank you.
time.
I appreciate your support and being part of the community. It comes,
Of course, we have to keep each other.
yeah, it comes for
We have to keep each other
Yes,
informed,
it comes
right?
full circle. And we just learned that we are basically neighbors. We're both in California, not too far from each other. So that's pretty cool. Um,
We'll have to grab
yeah,
coffee
yeah,
sometime.
for sure. I love my coffee. Well, because I put it in the trailer. So, um, so tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you do in case it wasn't covered in the intro.
Sure. So I'm a social worker, as you mentioned, and currently I'm working in crisis work. So I work with a team. We collaborate with a county in California, and we try to keep people out of the hospital. We're trying to keep individuals who are at risk for suicide, homicide, pretty much any kind of dangerous activity due to psychotic behavior or mental health issues, home and stable. So, what we try to do is de escalate the crisis. We do have a team. We work with case managers, peer support specialists, and of course, our clinicians, and we go into the home. We go into the home of the client, whether that may be a boarding care facility, a skilled nursing facility, living with friends or family, or their own residence, even into a shelter if necessary. And we kind of wrap around the client and support them wherever they need
That's awesome.
support.
So, what is your title with work? Like, what do they call you?
I'm a
Okay.
crisis clinician.
And so,
A
what is
crisis
a typical
clinician.
day in the life of a crisis clinician in your life? What does that look like? What do you do?
Well, it varies. Really, we have to be very flexible. Most days I have scheduled home visits where I'll receive a client, I'll have spoken with them, and we'll schedule an intake assessment, right? And so then on most days, I'll go out to my clients. We are field based, so I'll go out, like I said, to the residents if they want to meet at a library or a park, wherever they feel most comfortable. And initially, we do a 3-week program at our agency, so up to 3 weeks, and it's voluntary. So we will meet first for an assessment session, and then try to create a treatment plan for the client along with them. What do you want? What do you need? How can we help you? What has worked in the past? What hasn't worked in the past? And kind of go from there. After the and then we go into like the biopsychosocial, right? Like the psychiatric history, medical history, family history, any legal or justice involvement. Pretty much kind of get an idea, a quick picture of what the client's background and current history is, as well as their symptoms. What are they experiencing? Why are they here? What brought them to us? And then we schedule a next session. Now, the next session with myself as a clinician would be for therapy, where I provide a lot of short term coping skills, depending on the client, whether they are experiencing suicidal ideation, for example. We create, of course, a safety plan. Who can we call? What can we do? Have they had a history of behavior that might have felt has been escalated recently, or has this happened before? What worked in the past for you? What hasn't worked in the past for you? And then I try to see clients twice a week if they're able to. That's kind of a lot, because they're also seeing a case manager, a peer support specialist, and we're linking them to long-term therapy and or long-term psychiatrists as well. So that can be a lot, and we don't want to make their stress levels go up. So if some clients want to meet once a week, we do once a week. And then we just schedule from there. That might encounter or entail going to the park with a client, working on grounding, mindfulness practices that might involve progressive muscle relaxation while we're out by a lake, for example, or in their backyard. It might be just going to their home and helping them with what they have already available to them, working with if they have any family members or roommates, partners that they are open to discussing this with and sharing what the treatment plan might look like for them so that when they have symptoms at home, they have an idea of this feels familiar, this looks familiar. We practiced this with Lauren, and in the same bedroom, I did the same things. I can recall this quicker. So that's typically my life. I go to assessments, I go to therapy sessions. We do a lot of consults. So I consult with my treatment team, our case managers, our peer support specialists to help kind of create a collaborative approach to our clients, as well as discharge planning. That's always important because we are only 3-week program. We have to quickly, do the intake, assess, treat, and discharge. And discharge always will be after linkage to appropriate long-term services. We don't like to leave the clients hanging. In fact, we won't. If we have to
Okay.
extend,
Wow.
we
You do
will.
a lot, Lauren. This sounds really busy.
It's very busy, and because we're field-based, we have an office, right? And I do also work from home, but I'm really driving all day, which is also why I love the podcast world because I'm driving so much, and I feel like why not learn tips and techniques along the way and feel supported. And then I'm, also calling clients, reminding them of their visits, keeping them informed if they have, for instance, open access appointment to see a psychiatrist with the county, or do they have a case manager appointment. So I'm kind of like keeping them abreast of what's happening because they're going through so much that their recall very much is
Hmm.
impacted typically. Providing them planners or schedules or calendars and helping them write things down, teaching the clients how to utilize, if they have a smartphone, how to utilize a calendar in their smartphone, really trying to put as much effort as we can to help prevent
Right.
a future
Yeah. I love
crisis.
that because it sounds like when you get a referral for somebody, they are just engulfed in resources and support to the point where they can be like, no more. No more. This is too much support,
Yes.
which is not typical.
Right.
Yeah.
And we like that, right? I mean, sometimes if they're able to get linked quickly, say for instance, we have an assessment, we have a therapy session, and meanwhile the case manager is working really hard to collaborate with the client on with their insurance or out of pocket, or if it's Medi-Cal, where they can find a clinic nearby. We love to hear them say, you know what, I think I'm good now. I had an intake at my new long-term therapist. I saw my new psychiatrist. Like, thank you so much, but we don't have to schedule for next week because that means
Yes.
they're in a good spot, right? And they're not left by themselves wondering, it's so hard to access mental health services. We all know in the world, but if you're not working in this scope and you've never had to seek out for yourself or loved ones mental health support, you don't really realize how
Yeah.
difficult
I
it
work
can
in this
be.
space and it's difficult, even though I know what to do and what to look for, but it's still
Yeah,
difficult.
even though,
Hmm. So I'm
of
wondering,
course.
what would you say is the most challenging part of the work that you do?
Oh, well, first safety, right? My safety, the individual safety. Sometimes if I've had clients that are maybe actively delusional, and they have a lot of paranoia and they're not sure if I'm really there to help them, or if I'm part of some delusion, right? And so keeping them safe, keeping myself safe. That's where I really kind of watch the nonverbals, make sure I'm open and relaxed, that I'm showing that I'm empathetic and compassionate, while also being mindful of my surroundings, their surroundings, what's going on in the room. Also, like just the intensity, right? It's a very intense job. Everyone who comes in has experienced something really hard, whether it's a recent death of a loved one, a suicide attempt, maybe they're feeling very angry and not able to kind of control their feelings. So everything is very heavy. And oftentimes people that are coming to us have had a lot of trauma, unfortunately. And many times, unprocessed trauma. They didn't know or didn't were not able to access help. And so now it's like everything's at a tipping point. And so going from client to client, maybe I'm seeing 3, 4 clients a day on a busy day, maybe 2 to 3 in a typical day. Everyone has this really heavy story and it's hard. You don't want to bring it home with you. So that's challenging. I'd say safety, keeping safety a priority for both myself and my client, and then just making sure I'm in a space to deal with the stories I'm hearing. I'm not having any vicarious trauma, that I'm not bringing anything home to dump on my family or partner, that I'm just able to keep this separate and process it with my own therapist and utilize my own coping skills. Um, that's, I guess, the two most
And
challenging
thank you for
things.
sharing that, because that was both of these topics was something that I was wondering about as far as safety and being able to cope, because in this position as a crisis responder, being exposed to traumatic stories, you are at very high risk for experiencing
Mhm.
secondary trauma. And so I'm wondering, how do you set that emotional boundary for yourself so that you're not bringing home the heavy trauma and emotions that you experience throughout the day? How do you do that?
I have a really great team that I work with, luckily. So, chatting with my supervisor to process something that was extra challenging or hard to hear is really helpful with supervision. And also, just my fellow clinicians, talking with them. Nothing specific, but just, oh, that was a really rough session, and practicing on ourselves, like what we preach to our clients. Let's get outside for 10 minutes. I'm gonna go walk my dog, or I'll put some music on and go to the gym and run for an hour. I work out every day largely because of the stress that this job does encompass. Like if I don't take care of myself, I can't pour out anything to others. I'm just going to be overwhelmed, right? And so I think just being mindful and practicing really what I preach. We talk so much about self care, at least in my graduate school. I mean, every focus was self care, but it's hard to engage in self care when you're really busy and you're not only working, but you have a family maybe, or you have friends hopefully, and other hobbies that you do. So I really try to make a balance where when I'm done working and finished with my notes, I turn everything off work related, and I just end my day. Whether it's going to my gym, hanging out with friends, I also have pets, so being with my animals,
Yeah,
engaging in
I love
hobbies
that,
that I
because
like to
there's
do.
not one quick fix for this, because every day is different, and your body and our souls
No.
and our minds, they need something different every day, and sometimes more than one thing. So thank you.
Exactly. And just like the check-in, like day, like, do I feel, am I carrying this? Do I feel anything? How am I feeling in my shoulders? Like, am I feeling like any heaviness in my chest? Just checking in with myself and trying to kind of body scan myself at the end of my day to work on things that I want to work on before I do come in and spread the
Yes,
energy into
yes,
my
it makes
home.
such a big difference. And you mentioned the other challenging part is
Hmm.
safety. So this is always top of mind for us in
Certainly.
general, but especially as women going out, because it's just you by yourself. It's not like you're being accompanied by a police officer or anybody, right?
It is. No, no, we're not. I mean, sometimes the cat team might still be there. The crisis team might still be there from a different agency. And usually not. Typically, it's just myself. So I kind of have to really use my clinical judgment based on the intake, the referral information, the history, if I'm aware, if I have am privy to it of the client, and really just my own like over the phone clinical judgment of when I speak with them. Do I feel like this client as a client, I'm okay going into their home? Do I want to suggest me at a park or at a library, somewhere where, certainly after dark, I don't like to go into somebody's home. If we meet at a hotel, I always ask we meet in the lobby. I won't go into someone's hotel room or motel room. So I just really try to keep both of us safe and in the best way possible. And if that means being meeting in a public place, that's what I'll offer, based on my comfort level. And really, it's just also knowing, watching the nonverbals, watching, are they escalating? Is their face flushing? Are their eyes restricting? Are they getting tense? Are they clenching their jaw or their palms, really being mindful of like what their body is doing to prevent, and then I can calm myself or like talk slower, um, be more calm and focused myself to really help to de-escalate their behaviors, their emotions, their feelings. Ask them what they're thinking. I notice that you seem a little bit more upset right now. Do you want to talk about how you're feeling? So it's a lot of like just open questions, being mindful of nonverbals and using my own body to help regulate, to
Right.
co-regulate
It
their
takes a
emotional
lot
state as well.
of self awareness to know how you're presenting and the mood and vibe that you're giving off to the client, everywhere from your tone to the level of your voice to your where you position yourself, your body language, and the physical setting. I'm
Yes,
wondering, do you think about your clothes or your physical appearance?
I do. I do.
Okay.
So I wouldn't
And
wear
she's wearing
this
a
to a
tank top,
session,
by the
right? I
way.
would have I would have something a little
Yeah.
more conservative. I'm wearing a tank top. Yeah. which for today's work has been fine. I've been doing virtual, but I'd have a little more coverage, more conservative approach, certainly comfortable shoes. And if I do have to take off quickly, I am not going to be wearing heels into a client's home or even any crisis situation, honestly. You're going to be doing a lot of walking, a lot of driving, which I do. So I wear comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes. I'm aware I don't bring personal items. I don't bring a purse with me into a client's home. I have my work bag. And I do share locations with, you know, a person, someone on my team usually also, but my family or friend as well. So that if I'm not reaching back out, if I'm in a session and no one's hearing from me, they know where I'm at. Luckily, I've always been very safe, and our team has
Yeah,
always been, knock on wood, very safe. Nothing's happened, but you just never know. You have to be mindful, anything could happen. And someone is feeling desperate. They don't feel they have a lot to lose. Their frontal lobe is turned off right now. They're going through something really challenging, maybe not using the most rational thought process at the time. You have to be aware, of those are coming into play in crisis work, and everything's a possibility. We do assess for firearms, but someone could
right.
also tell us a lie, right? We don't know. So we just really just clinical judgment, always assessing. We can't turn it off as a social worker. I think we've been trained well that we're always assessing anyway, and being mindful, like you said, of my body presentation, my tone of voice, how I'm asking them questions. I'm not going to want to go in and tell them what to do or command something. I'm going to ask, may I come into your home? Where should I sit? Of course, I'm going to sit near an exit with my back, facing someone and not against. I want to make sure that I'm in a safe space where I can see my surroundings. But I just also want to be respectful that this is someone's home. This is their space. I'm a stranger, and I don't want to present as a
Definitely,
threat to
definitely.
anybody.
And these are helpful tips for
Also,
anybody in the field doing home visits. And it's a lot of things that you have to think about that you may not have gone over in school or in internship, that people may just kind of assume it's taken for granted. But these basic safety tips are so
hmm
important just for our own well-being, and to make sure that we're safe out there, because stuff does happen to social workers and we don't want that to be you. Yeah. Yeah.
definitely. No. And then keeping like cultural considerations. A lot of clients will want to offer a drink or something to eat. They're being kind, and that's something they want to share. Certainly in other cultures, they want to give food, right? But I don't know these people. I don't know how their food is being prepared, if they're having delusions
Hmm.
or paranoia. Is it even safe? So I always just will graciously decline. Oh, thank you. I just had lunch, or I had a water in the car. I just had a coffee. Thank you. But really just being mindful
Right.
of, yes, we don't know them and they don't know us,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we
And
want
try
to
not
keep
to use
ourselves safe.
clients' bathrooms. That can go all sorts of wrong.
Yes. I know where I know where all the bathrooms are in my county where I'm working, all the Starbucks and Targets, because that's usually where I'm going to right
Yes.
after a long session.
No, no, try
Not a
not to
not a
do that
client's
at all
restroom for
costs.
sure.
So we talked about some challenging parts, which, a lot of it is safety and just, kind of being aware, and the vicarious trauma. I was like, what was the second one? The trauma of it. What would you say is the most
Yeah.
rewarding part? Like,
Yeah.
why do you do this work?
Seeing people get help that need help, right? I mean, if you're going through something, we've all been through something really hard. Some maybe might feel they have had less trauma than others, but all trauma is trauma, and we're only able to perceive it as our own, right? We can't, so there's really no rating scale of, well, they've had it harder, I've had it harder. Whatever you're going through that's hard is hard. And if you don't know where to turn or who to call, or maybe there's so much stigma, it's getting better, I feel, but there's still certainly stigma surrounding mental health and asking for help or getting resources. And so to know that you're able to be there and someone's able to share with you like their most vulnerable moments, I feel so honored and privileged because wow, like they really trust me, and who am I to deserve this piece of their life, right? Of their story, but being able to see them get support, watching their face from like really scared or angry or frustrated or feeling hopeless, that they don't deserve to get better, to watch that turn into neutral and then happy, relaxed, peaceful. it's a really nice feeling, and I feel fortunate that I get to be a part of that story. And so that's really why I can keep doing it, even though it's hard. It's certainly not a job where you just know what to expect every day, and you know you'll be off at a certain time. And that's just I've been at assessments that I thought would be an hour that take 4 hours sometimes because something went south. And that's just how it's going to be in crisis work. But to watch someone be surrounded by those who care that they do get that they matter, that they didn't take their life, that that's not something they have to turn to, that's not their go-to coping skill. That makes me feel it's just so fortunate
Definitely.
that I get to be a part of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. That's
that it makes it
beautiful.
worth it.
And there's just something special about being there in that moment with somebody else while they turn it around, because so many times I've seen where people just need to talk to somebody.
Yes.
They just need to share what they're going through. And after they're able to share that with somebody who's actually listening
Mhm.
and care and has the capacity to take on that emotional load with them, it makes such a difference. Yeah.
So true. That's so true. And I always tell my clients, you are the expert of yourself. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I just want to help you process what's happening, like what thoughts are bouncing around in your head that feel so unable to be deciphered until you get them out. And then you can hear, like, oh, yeah, as I'm saying it, I know what I should be doing. I know my next step. They know what to do as they're able to process and feel supported and
Yes.
seen
Yes, for
most of the
sure.
time.
So, a question that I know somebody is thinking right now, if they are interested in getting into this line of work, is there something that they need to do? Is there a certificate? Is there training? Is there entry level positions? Are there volunteer? Like, how could somebody even get started in this?
Certainly, trainings are helpful, right? So, crisis intervention training, CIT training, is something that I did. I also took a course and was certified in trauma focused CBT. So, that helped me, I think, everything that you can do training wise that will help you understand how to work in a crisis setting or and work with people who have experienced significant trauma is going to be helpful. I think, a year or two typically of working like face to face with clients as a clinician in any private practice setting or in a medical setting, really, as long as you're working with clients and you understand how to do an assessment, how to write, biopsychosocials, how to write a diagnosis and to formulate, and then to pretty much just write a treatment plan. So really working with clients in the past, whether it's through internship or post grad experience and the trainings, and really just I think a passion. If you go in and you apply for a position and you can show that you're passionate about this work, maybe you've had experience through your own personal life or through a friend or family that makes you feel more in line with working with crisis patients,
Okay, great.
that's
So
certainly helpful
lots
as
of
well.
great tips that you just gave there, Lauren. Listener, if you didn't pick up what Lauren just dropped on you, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
recap because this is gold, especially if you are going into an interview. Trainings are helpful, but it doesn't sound like they are required, because if you've had experiences
No.
doing psychosocial assessments, working in a medical setting, even within your internship, and or if you have any kind of personal experience, all of these things can be used and brought up in your cover letter, on your resume. Make sure you're putting that on your resume and talk about that during the interview as a reason for why they should hire you, because you have done, X, Y, and Z. You want to make sure that you're prepared to talk about what you have done going in. Also, make sure you take notes as far as what Lauren had mentioned around, safety planning and the types of duties, because if this is a job that you want to do, they're going to want to see that that you know what you're getting into, that you're not going to be scared away by doing home visits.
Certainly. And I think I did not mention one thing. I think in crisis work, flexibility is key. If you're able to be flexible, if you understand that going into your day, something's going to change, something's going to happen, and also
Mm.
to be able to work well under pressure. That you're going to be able to keep that calm, cool, collected stance. You have to be the healthiest person in the room because that's just at that point, that's your role. And you can have a moment in the car on your way back home or call your supervisor and discuss what happened. But be able to work well under pressure and be flexible. Those are really instrumental. I think if that's a challenge for you, I think you'll
Okay.
find it really
Yeah,
difficult
that's
to
a
be in
great
this line
add.
of work.
And and I would also add too is be able to know yourself, have that self-awareness and do that self-care that you need to be well, because if we need to be the um what did you say? It wasn't the best person. Healthiest. Yeah.
The healthiest person in
Yeah,
the room,
that takes a lot of
the
work. It takes
healthiest. Yes,
dedication and it takes work to do that, but it's worth it.
it
It's
does.
worth it.
And we can't always be that, but then to know when to take a day off, when to take, when to utilize your self-care, your sick time,
Definitely.
because we can't
Definitely, of
always be this.
course. Yes.
Nobody can.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for coming on the podcast, sharing your expertise with us. If people have questions for you or they want to connect with you, where can they learn more about you?
Oh, this is the hard part. I really am not out there. I mean, I really don't I don't have a presence in social media. I'm pretty much just nobody would know me. I'm just doing my job. However, I can give my
Sure.
information
Yep.
to you, Catherine, if that's okay. And then we could do it that way. I feel like that's a little more appropriate with my line of work. I do have some clients who prefer not to
Understandable.
be able to
Another
access me at all
safety
times.
thing that we might not, that we got to be aware of. So, yes,
Yes.
listener, if you have questions for Lauren, email me. You can reach me and I will connect you then with Lauren. So, thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you today. And thank you for all the work that you do. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. It was so
Thank
lovely talking
you.
to you and seeing you in person. Well, on screen.